Hello friends! As you can see today, we are doing a small craft with some pumpkins. Since we are in the midst of fall and Halloween's just around the corner, I thought this would be a great idea for the season. Plus, we are doing 3 different techniques, none of which actually are carving the pumpkins, so they can last all season depending on when you do them. That is kind of a technique I love using, is just decorating pumpkins. It's a little different than your typical jack-o'-lantern, and obviously since you aren't cutting into the pumpkins, they will last, which is also a great benefit with these techniques. So, like I said, we're doing 3 today, and as we go through each section, I'll tell you what you'll need for the craft, and I'll see you there. For our first project today, I took our medium-sized pumpkin in white. All of these crafts are completely customizable, so the size of your pumpkin and the color is totally up to you. For this first one, we're going to be essentially sort of decoupaging our pumpkin. For this project, you're going to need tissue paper. Again, the color is completely up to you. I picked 3 different kinds, this purple, faint green, and like a light blue. You'll need some sort of applique for your glue. Glue, Mod Podge I found does work best. I have a plate just to put the glue on. Obviously a pumpkin. Now for the tissue paper, you can either cut it into small squares, circles. I tore little bits and pieces up because that's just kind of the look I'm going for. But it's totally up to you what you want. You might see a glue gun over here, but that's for the next project. To start for this one, I'm just putting some glue on my tray. Now, I'm going to go over the entire pumpkin with glue. But I'm only going to maybe put my design up to maybe halfway. The reason for that is I know sometimes when glue dries, it creates that almost shiny appearance. And I don't want that to only be around the areas that I'm putting my tissue paper on. So I am going to put a small coat of glue over the entire pumpkin. It's a pretty easy technique. You're obviously just going over with just a thin layer just to give it that little sheen, because I don't want that sheen just to be around the tissue paper. So we are just covering the pumpkin in glue. I am going to go all the way to the bottom. One thing I would suggest that I did not do for this project is put down some newspaper or something just to cover your surface. I did not do that here, obviously, and I'm probably going to regret that later with this one in particular. Now you are simply just going to take your tissue paper, whether it's the circles, whatever shape you wanted, and place it over the glue. It's a pretty simple project, and it goes in any pattern you like. Just kind of smooth it out. You will wind up with glue on your hands. It's not the end of the world. Just wear an apron. As you go and you layer different pieces over top of each other, you might want to add just a thin layer of glue over each of your tissue surfaces, just for some added strength holding it down. You will get a few wrinkles in your paper, and that's perfectly fine. For the design, you are going to want to layer things over one another. That's completely acceptable to do. And there is no certain size that you need your shapes or torn pieces to be. Just, I would imagine if you want a bigger pumpkin, you would probably want bigger pieces. It just makes it easier on you. And there you go. Here's our final look at our pumpkin. As you can see, we have multicolored tissue paper running around the length. I kept the bulk towards the base of the pumpkin and moved it up into smaller pieces as we moved up. If I wanted to keep going, I would probably make smaller and smaller pieces until I got to the stem. But this is kind of like where I wanted to stop for today. I hope you like this one. It's a fun little project. It does get messy, but overall I like the final look. For this next design, we'll be using our larger orange pumpkin, but like I said previously, the size and color is totally up to you. So for this next one, you will need a pumpkin, assorted fake or dried flowers. I have some pansies, some lilac, hydrangea, a few autumn leaves, a little bit of wheat, and some greenery. You might need some wire cutters to cut the tips of your flowers off the stems. These ones I just pulled off, but I know some, depending on the quality you get, will actually be attached and you will have to cut them off. And I also have some hot glue over here as well. And we are just going to decorate our pumpkin with floral. Now, you can do this totally to your style. You can cover the pumpkin in flowers. I'm not the biggest fan of that just because you can't see the pumpkin, so I feel like it kind of misses the point of having a pumpkin. So I'm going to do mine actually just in a linear line that might curve a little bit around the pumpkin. This is another project you could actually, since I have a background in floristry, you can cut this pumpkin open, clean it out, and actually use it as a base and put live flowers in it, but obviously that'll die quickly, just like the pumpkin would once it's carved open. So that is something, if you want to go that route, that you want to do closer to Halloween or whatever event that you are making that arrangement for. That's why we are using fake flowers today with this project and decorating the exterior so the pumpkin won't go bad and obviously the flowers won't either. So you take your pumpkin and just kind of decide what the front is or where you want to start. I'm going to start about right here. This first bit of glue I'm putting on is nothing more than me creating a line, deciding where I want my flowers to go. So I'm not too worried about it drying. Obviously, if you're doing this project with kids, you might want to be a little cautious since you are using hot glue. I'm sure you can use any kind of glue as long as it will hold down these flowers. It's just hot glue is kind of my preference. You can also use a pencil or something or a pen to mark this line. I'm just using glue right now. And I think I'm going to aim for this to be the front. So I'm going to focus a lot of my material there. Since this will be on my porch, I'm not going to waste my time decorating that side as much. Unfortunately, because of that, I'm going to have to work towards myself, so you probably won't be able to see it too well. But we will make it all work. For me, I'm going to start with putting some of my greenery down. Mostly because that's how I work when it comes to actually arranging flowers. And this project is not so hard. I've seen people do rings around the top, which is a good look too. But I will be doing this line. Now obviously, if you've worked with hot glue guns before, you have to be wary because it is hot, obviously. It's in the name. I'm gonna pop one of these off right now. Put a little bit of my greenery towards darker greenery towards the front. I have done a similar technique with this where you drill holes into the pumpkin, but again, since you're breaking into and breaking that seal of that pumpkin, it does go bad. So you have to be mindful of that. As I go, I'll work some of these leaves down a little bit more. But for right now, I'm just kind of, again, working on creating that line around the pumpkin. Debating on whether or not I want to put the leaves on now or wait till last. I think I might possibly wait till last. Next step, I'm going to put on some of my hydrangeas. With these ones, I can't be, since there's not a flat surface like on the leaves, I might have to do it a little more angled. But I'm going to put these ones first, just because the color is so similar to the pumpkin. I know it's going to kind of blend into the back anyway. So I'd rather the hydrangeas stay in the background so that I can use the pops of colors like the purples and my pansies towards the front. And I'm just going to go around and start gluing these to the pumpkin. As you can see here, I'm taking the stem completely off the pansies. I noticed as I was working, a lot of the stems from the hydrangeas were showing, so I'm going to try to conceal that with the pansies a little more. So as you are putting your flowers down, just kind of be mindful of the little bit of stems that you find on the flowers, because you are going to want to obviously cover that up as you go. So just try to be a little mindful of that. But if you have extra flowers at the end, such as some of my hydrangeas fell off, that I can kind of cover up some of the mechanical workings underneath when it comes to all that. So I'm just going to start putting the pansies on and the lilacs, a little bit of the wheat, and we will call this done. And here you go. Here's our floral pumpkin made with fake flowers. I hope you like the overall look. I did get it a little bit fuller than I had expected, but I think the overall appearance is fine. As you go through the pumpkin, you may notice you are going to grab, or create rather, a bunch of those little hot glue strings that are the burden of using hot glue. So just as you're going, make sure you kind of clean it up after yourself. I'm probably going to watch this video back and see some I didn't grab, but just kind of get that off there. And hey, if you can't get them all, it looks like cobwebs. So thank God it's that Halloween time of year. For our last project, I'm using our smaller yellow pumpkin, but again, size doesn't matter when it comes to the pumpkin, so pick what you want. You are going to need a pumpkin, some sort of ribbon, scissors to cut the ribbon, and a little bit of hot glue. Pretty easy. Now, just like all the rest of the ones today, it's totally customizable. We are going to deck this out in ribbons. I'm personally going to try to make it look sort of like a wrapped present. I'm going to put a bow of ribbon on the top and actually create linear lines down the sides like you would like an old-fashioned wrapped Christmas present. So I'm kind of combining holidays today. The ribbon I chose, you probably can't see this on camera, but it's a lot of fall leaves. I'll make sure that it's in the imagery when I post it at the end. For the style that I'm doing today, I'm just going to measure from the top of the pumpkin to the base, so it is about that big. And just cut. And with that, I'm going to cut a few different sizes. I have two different ribbons here because I wasn't sure which one I was going to use, but I don't see myself using this leafed ribbon for any other project, so I figured I'd go ahead and use that today because this seems to be a perfect fit for this season. And I want to make sure, because I do want to leave enough for myself to make the bow at the end. So for right now, I'm going to cut 4 strands that go around my pumpkin. Now obviously the length of yours will depend on the size of your pumpkin, and depending on how many of the strands of ribbon you want around your pumpkin is really going to depend on the look you're going for and the size of your pumpkin versus the size of your ribbon. This is a pretty good size for this pumpkin, but if I was doing a larger pumpkin, these wouldn't show up as well, so I might need larger ribbon or a lot more of this ribbon to make more strands going down all the sides. I'm going to start by making a bow for the top of the pumpkin. That way I know if I have any left over, I can make some more strands of ribbon going down the sides. I won't show you the details of how to make the ribbon in this. I do have a video for that. I will link it in the description below. That way you can kind of see how I'm making my ribbon today. Now that I've measured out how much ribbon I need for my bow, I'm just going to go back and make some more strands that'll go along the sides of the pumpkin. Now I wish I could give you measurements for the bow, how much you will need for that, but again, it's going to be up to the size of the pumpkin you have. The bigger the pumpkin, the bigger the bow you're going to want, just because it will look better that way. So unfortunately, I can't give you an exact measurement for that. Okay, let's set that bedazzled ribbon aside. I'm going to put a little bit of glue up here where the stem used to be, and then run it down the side. It doesn't matter if the top looks particularly good or the base, bottom of the pumpkin, because you won't see the bottom of the pumpkin since that's where it's sitting, and the top will be covered by the bow. Obviously, to do this technique, if you haven't noticed, you're definitely going to want a pumpkin that either does not have a stem, or you're going to have to try to find a way to work with that stem, which is would be a little hard. This is another one that would be good with kids, but you do have to be mindful of the fact you are using hot glue, so just be careful when it comes to that. I'm going to give that a second to dry a little bit. Poke it down with my scissors, that way I don't burn myself again. You might have seen me jumping throughout the quick time portions of the video. So give that a second. I have a few strands left of this, so I might go ahead and add it to the bow. The beautiful thing about this glue that I'm using is it kind of makes or not glue, the ribbon I'm using, it kind of makes mistakes disappear. So it's not that big a deal if you make one, thank goodness. And at the end of the day, this is supposed to be a homemade project, so perfection is not what we're going for. Set that aside again. This is pretty much dry, so I'm going to flip the entire pumpkin over. Make sure to untangle your ribbons so you know how they're coming up along the sides. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Just make sure you're carrying your ribbons across and that it's not they're not getting twisted on their way up, and you should be good. Again, giving that a second to dry. once again, like I said in our last project, obviously you're going to get these strings, you can't see them on camera probably, but just pull them off as you go. Flip it back over. And we have to take one more squirt of hot glue right there on the top and attach our bow. Again, a pretty simple project, as you can see below. I love the way the bow turned out. I'm glad I went with the ribbon that was the leaves rather than the bedazzled one to finish it off. I just like that look, especially for autumn. And again, since it's not punctured, this will last you all season. So these are our 3 pumpkins today. I hope you liked them. If you did, make sure you like the video and subscribe. Let me know in the comment section if you made them, or take some photos and post them on my blog at james-novotny.com. These are very different techniques with our ribbon, our floral, and our tissue paper. And I hope you liked at least one of them. They're great techniques to make your pumpkins last all season long rather than cutting into them. You can save that project for just before Halloween, so they'll last until the holiday.